Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin Robbie Billups, and we're about to get into the Amy, Rex, and Robbie show. We're going to be having a great conversation today. We're talking about two of our favorite things: why Star Wars isn't doing so well, and why the theater chains are not doing so well. So, two of our favorite topics thrown in together. We want to invite you to join us in the conversation, but I do want to get this out of the way real quick. We are in the midst of our 20K giveaway here on Pop Culture Philosophers. We have a great prize package that we're giving away. It's going to include every issue of Avengers Twilight provided by Marvel Comics. We're going to be giving away Spider-Man Reign, the collection, just in time for the second volume of that, the sequel, like 20 years later, is finally coming out. So we're going to be giving that away. We're also giving away one of my favorite Marvel comics in the last 5 years, Hulk Grand Design, in a trade paperback collection with a signed book plate from cartoonist Jim Rugg. If you want to enter that contest, comment on this video. Not in the chat, though we do want you to participate in the chat, but after the show, drop in the comments, throw out a comment, and you will be entered to win the 20K giveaway. And you can do this with every video that PCP has released this week, all the way from Sunday night's Rockin Robbie Live to tomorrow morning's weekly pop culture wrap-up. Every show that's released this week, comment on, it will give you another chance to win. All right. We're talking about Star Wars. We're talking about movie theaters. It's the Amy, Rex, and Robbie show, and you can't have this without the dynamic, dastardly duo from Dynamite Comics. And we promise no Comcast interruptions tonight. It's Rex. What is up, my man?
What's up, bud?
Chilling, man. Happy to have you here from your home studio where you don't have Comcast.
Yeah, right. So we should not have any kind of interruption problems for this show. That's what we're hoping for.
So it's no longer the Rex and Robbie show. It's the Amy, Rex, and Robbie show. And so we're ready to we already have Radical Rex here. So now it's time to introduce awesome Amy. What is up, Amy?
Hello, hello. It's been a couple weeks for me, so I'm happy to be back.
Just in time for some more Star Wars conversation, Amy, which you never get tired of, I'm sure.
Of course.
And sorry we're late, everybody. I got distracted before we went live with some cereal talk. Somebody mentioned cereal, and I just kind of went off for a while. So out there in the chat right now, what are your top 5 favorite cereals? Let us know. All right, first topic. Let's get right into it because Billy's ready. I see Billy, and I know that every time we talk about Star Wars, Billy is ready. All right, so recently there's a rumor. So a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, I should say, there was a rumor put out by some website, Cosmic Circus or Comic Circus, something. I don't remember. I don't even know what the website is, but they said they know for certain, with no sources mentioned or even saying that they knew somebody within Lucasfilm. They said this Rey Skywalker movie that we're getting is going to be titled Star Wars 10, A New Beginning, which made me think of Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning, right? Which didn't work for Friday the 13th, even though I think it's a great film. But then it got me thinking. And then this week it's come back up because 2 more like websites, and we're not talking Variety, we're not talking Deadline, we're not talking Hollywood Reporter, we're not talking about anything that has actual sources. We're talking about somebody made a post. 2 other people now this week have said, we have heard rumblings that this is happening, and we're in this like circle jerk of like confirmation between these 3 sites that don't actually have solid sources. So in all actuality, this Rey Skywalker film that's in pre-production at this point is not going to be called Star Wars Episode 10, A New Beginning. But it got me thinking, do we actually want that? Like, whether it's Rey Skywalker, whether it's something new, whether they're just whatever, do we actually want Star Wars Episode 10? And I would say this, even people that are fans of Star Wars, like so hardcore that they're like not critical of much about Star Wars is an interesting franchise because we had those initial 3 movies that came out before a lot of the fandom today was alive or born, right? I was born after Empire Strikes Back has already come out, right? I was 2 years old when Return of the Jedi came out, I didn't go see that in theaters. My first Star Wars theater experience was watching the special editions in like 1997, right? And then the prequels, which were universally hated by Star Wars fans. But now, 20 something years later, we kind of like look at those prequels. A lot of us look at those prequels fondly with nostalgia. And of course, there's a lot of discourse about the sequel trilogy in a way. So this is what I'm going to say. We got outside of all the like tie-in movies and things like Rogue One or Solo or anything like that, right? You got 3 sets of trilogies. One worked because it was new. It was different. Nothing had been done like that. We had a story with a beginning, middle, and an end, right? And everybody was happy, right? Everybody was happy. Then we got the prequels. And regardless of what people think now, I'm going to refer to what the populace, the general populace thought back in the late 90s, early 2000s. The prequels didn't really satisfy. And if you look at the discourse today, the sequels don't really satisfy. So I don't know what the path forward for Star Wars is, but me personally, I don't think it's episode 10. I don't think moving on and having the story continue, but at the same time, what do you do outside of a reboot? I don't know. So I want to ask you out there in the chat, what do we actually want from a Star Wars? Do we want episode 10? Do we want episode -3? Like, I don't know. What do you want, a prequel to the prequels? Do you want something completely new? Do you want the Mandalorian? Because even now it seems like the shine of the Mandalorian has dissipated. And I think that the Mandalorian and Grogu movie is poised to not do as well as they want to, because they should have released that like 3 years ago when we were at the hype of that. I don't know what the path forward for Star Wars is. But me personally, I don't think it's episode 10, but at the same time, maybe actually do a new beginning, but don't involve, and it's so crazy to me that they're still trying to do a Rey Skywalker movie. To me, that's the equivalent of like after the prequels, if they were like, you know what? We know y'all didn't really vibe with those too much, but we're going to have a Jar Jar Binks series. Or we're going to have a prequel about Qui-Gon Jinn. Or we're going to fill in the gaps between certain, like, it just seems so weird to take probably the most divisive era of Star Wars we've ever been. The poster child of that is Rey Skywalker. I think that Rey, I think they should abandon that. But I don't know if the branding, and this is the thing I really want us to focus on, is the branding. Do we actually want something branded Star Wars Episode 10? And if not, or if, what do we actually want? Amy, why don't you kick us off?
I want to point out Sweet Mimosa's comment. What they say is nothing against it, but like just even if it's sequel characters, use whatever you want, but actually have a plan and stick to it. And that's probably the number one thing I thought of. That just, I know we brought this up before. You look back at the prequels, even though they're not perfect movies, they had a plan. They knew what that trilogy was. We follow Anakin Skywalker, see him at his beginnings until he becomes Darth Vader, and they stuck to that plan. So, and with the newer trilogy, I thought they had a solid start, and then they just kind of made it up as they kept going along, and they couldn't decide where they wanted to land with that. And when they just threw in the Emperor again, everyone was like, wait, what? You know, so if they do want to do a new trilogy, I think maybe take a break a little bit and really plan it out. And I know currently right now they're doing their TV shows where it takes place more in the past, not so much with the sequel trilogy. And it's getting a lot of mixed stuff right now. So maybe they just need a breather on Star Wars, and really, if they want to do future stories, actually, if they want to do a new trilogy, actually plan each story out.
Yeah, I think planning goes a long way. There wasn't any planning in the sequel trilogy. Not really. Like J.J. Abrams did his thing with Force Awakens, and it worked. Like at that time, everybody got to remember that it worked, right? Like people were into that movie. It made a lot of money. People were into it. Last Jedi is the moment, really, where everything kind of shifts I think, right?
One second,
And
like I'm just fixing a light. I can hear you guys. I'm just
oh, you're fine. And I liked Last Jedi for the most part. It could have been cut down a little bit and been a little bit more impactful. But Rise of Skywalker to me is the big dud of that trilogy. And it really feels like to me, it's obvious that they were just like trying to please everybody by making a mix mash of trying to meet expectations, but without actually showing anything. There is no cohesive plan in those three movies. Abrams did his thing. Johnson came in, did his thing. And then Abrams came in to try to like fix it or something like that, right? It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, no plan at all. And Amy, I agree with you. It's whatever they do next, they need a plan. And their plan needs to be a story with a beginning, middle, and an end. And that is what we enjoyed with the original Star Wars trilogy. Because Star Wars, if it was just the one movie, would still work today. And then that initial trilogy, it actually had a plan.
And I think George Lucas still had this whole story in his head, even if he didn't tell it to everybody, because there's stories, you know, about them making the second one and the third one, like how like the cast, you know, they didn't find certain things out until George Lucas finally said something, you know, especially about, you know, Luke and Leia being siblings. Because I remember watching a video with John Williams talking about, you know, him writing the Star Wars theme and him writing like, you know, the romantic theme for Leia. And he said, like, you know, back in that first one, he's like, everyone thought it was going to be like Luke and Leia being together. And then, you know, oh no, and this new one, like she's getting with Han, and they're like, George Lucas finally tells him what's going on. He's like, wait, what? I got to write a whole new theme. So like, so there was still, even back then, there was still kind of a plan, even if not everybody knew about it.
Yeah. Yeah. The plan's the big deal here, right? Like, they made Force Awakens without knowing what was going to come next. They made Last Jedi without realizing what was going to come next. And then Rise of Skywalker, they're trying to tie it all together. And it's, I think no matter what, like, I know a lot of the division happened around Last Jedi, Solo, that era, right? But the first time actually fans kind of pulled away from George Lucas was the release of the special editions, right? I would even say this goes back as far as Greedo shooting first. That was the first times where fans felt betrayed by Star Wars. We're like, wait a second. You trying to tell us that you're changing the actual like meaning of certain scenes and certain characters? Like, no, it's part of Han Solo's character that he's going to shoot Greedo first because he knows Greedo's about to come after him because he knows there's a hit on his head. I feel like Star Wars lost a sense of danger with that, right? It lost a little bit of an adult sensibility and went strictly for kids. And if you look at these as kid movies, I think that actually makes Star Wars post 1999 make a little bit more sense. But always here to make sense of Star Wars and its past, its present, and its future is Radical Rex. So Rex, why don't you tell us what you think about this topic? Is this dude frozen? Are you serious?
So guess what? I am actually having problems, believe it or not. Something's going on with my internet, believe it or not.
So wait, is it not Comcast? Is it you?
So I don't know. I really don't. Yeah, weird enough. All this heat has really. I mean, I don't know if you know in our local area, the commuter train between and New Jersey Transit from here, New Jersey up into New York has been suspended. Tons of problems because of the heat. So I don't know if this has something to do with it or not. But look, Acolyte sucks. Okay, Mandalorian was great. Boba Fett was not. Obi-Wan was not. So in the sense, I agree with what Amy's saying is that you need a plan. But is it too late for the plan? I don't know. Because they came out and they went in all these different directions. So we're going to tell a story about Boba Fett. We're going to talk about the period between. We're going to talk about the prequel, which is the Acolyte. We're going to talk about, what happens after. The problem is after the last set of movies, they saw an opportunity and they jumped on all of them. and did none of them well. So now you've got people all over the place. You really don't know what's going on. So you see, Raul, I'm not. I find the characters, there are things that they could focus on that they haven't. And that's been the whole problem. They kind of take a little dip into it and then they pull back. And then you never get a real kind of, I don't know, how do you put it? A deep dive. Like one thing I'd like to see in Acolyte is I like to see a little bit more about the witches, okay, who obviously have control over the force and so on and so forth. That would have been a good deep dive. We haven't gotten that. Are we going to? No. Because we are talking about these twins. And that seems to be a focal point of the story. And just like Obi-Wan, the focal point was the young Princess Leia. Okay. And then I'm trying to think. Mandalorian, so it's almost like you want to tell a different story, but you're trying to hook onto the original, okay, by introducing the history of these people, whether it be Princess Leia, whether it be Grogu, and how he's connected to Yoda, and Acolyte now, it's just there we go, Marcus. It's just you're all over the place and you're not focusing on one, you're losing the audience because we can't keep track. All right, we can't keep track. We can't keep it all together. So the beauty of the original Star Wars was there was a linear kind of story that was being told, okay, with implications of the past and how it affects. But there was one storyline, and in a sense, I disagree with Billy Powermax. I think the route that you need is something that is unconnected, okay, to the Skywalkers, to Darth Vader, to all of that, and move on. Okay, move on, move to a new line, a storyline, whatever you will, and that's what they failed to do. So they got all this crap coming out that just confuses everybody and lends itself to being criticized.
I see a lot of people always, and some people even in the chat right now mentioning, well, the movies make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But there's a difference between, let's be honest, Disney's expectations right now and the populace's expectations of Star Wars are very high, right? This is something that could be continued and exploited, and it can be a big moneymaker. And as much as those movies make, as much as the licensing makes, as much as all the merch and the toys and all that stuff makes, right? They could make more if it wasn't always about this sucks, this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to experience it. Why are you hating? Oh, I hate because it's not good. It doesn't capture that feel. Now, there are plenty of movies that capture the feel of the original Star Wars to me, right? That have good, solid concepts, really great core ideas and themes, and also great special effects. I just recently watched the Tom Cruise movie from 2013 that I had never seen, Oblivion. That movie's phenomenal. The world building, everything that's set up, the way it's shown, the way it's shot, everything about that movie was great. Not everything needs to be a big franchise, but we are in the position where Star Wars is a huge franchise, right? And this has so much potential. But the thing I would say is this: they have never lived up to the potential in the fandom's head. Maybe because there was too long of a gap between Return of the Jedi and the special edition and Phantom Menace, right? And now you're getting so much. If you really look at it, if you charted it, you'd be like Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, boom. But you would see this like pickup all of a sudden. Maybe Rex has a point. There's not a linear story to follow anymore. There's not core characters. They tried to make core characters in the sequel trilogy, and it didn't work. The prequel trilogy, a little bit different, because those are core characters we already knew. We're just getting backstory on those, right? But with the sequel trilogy, they had so much opportunity. They had a great character with Poe Dameron, in my opinion. I think the reason why I really do like Last Jedi is because, first of all, it's cinematically beautiful, and I love Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron in that film. Like he actually has a little bit more to do and a little bit more personality in that film to me. There's your Han Solo. Play with that, right? You're kind of using the structure and the archetypes from the original trilogy. You have your Luke with Rey, you have your Leia, I guess, with Finn. They never knew what they were doing with Finn. Finn was only ever there to make you feel like he was supposed to be the main character, and then you find out it's Rey. After that, they had no use for Finn, and it's so obvious in those movies. But there's a lot of potential with Poe. There's a lot of potential with Rey. But as much as I love Poe Dameron, as much as I think there's potential there, I don't think the way forward is to go back to that sequel trilogy, which, let's be honest, the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy, no matter how much money they made, they didn't work because they're not inspiring more people to go and see Star Wars, right? Now, there are kids that their first movies for Star Wars were the prequels, and so they think of them with a very fond sense. There are people today alive that feel the same way about the sequel trilogy, but if you look at the reception from the general audience and the fans, the prequels and the sequels never matched what came before. I don't think the way forward, here's the thing, the branding, let's talk about this specifically. The branding of Star Wars Episode 10, X, Star Wars X. Why not just call it Star Wars X, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But here's the thing. I think that branding is strong and people are ready for the next chapter, but I don't think they want that next chapter to be a continuation of Rey, Poe, and Finn. I think they want something different. Maybe we skip ahead like 20 years, 30 years, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 years. Skip ahead. Do something different and try to actually understand what made Star Wars work was the fact that had great special effects, really cool sci-fi ideas, great characters based on very, very simple and basic archetypes. It was based on Kurosawa stuff. How about somebody go into another Kurosawa film, pull out some ideas, and make a new story, Episode 10, a new beginning, and have it be a true new beginning, right? What do you think about that idea, Amy? What do you think about the branding of X?
That's probably the best way to do it. Just start totally fresh with Star Wars, and like experiment. Really, just experiment with it. See what works, see what doesn't. Because obviously, if they sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second.
It's okay.
I'm reading everyone's comments, and I'm trying to get my own thoughts clear. Because sometimes, like, again, sometimes smaller stories with Star Wars work. Isn't that how The Mandalorian started out? Was really just The Mandalorian and Grogu. Like, it was very, very simple, and that's really what kept it strong.
Yeah.
So maybe New Beginning just needs to be a smaller story, and then it grows.
Yeah, like Mandalorian, I think worked because it picked. First of all, it picked a very tiny part of the Star Wars films that has been expanded on in books like The Mandalorians, and it like brought that to it, right? And it had Kurosawa, it had Lone Wolf and Cub, right? It had like a little bit of spaghetti westerns. It had a lot of inspiration from classic cinema, and I feel like even now, Mandalorian, and I haven't watched it since Episode 2 because honestly, when Luke Skywalker showed up, I kind of fell off just a little bit. Like I was like, I understand what people like Billy are saying. Like, if it ain't got Luke or Han, well, we're past those days, right? Like the recast of Han and Solo didn't work, but that was, I think, more of a response to The Last Jedi than actually that. I think Solo's a great film, but like, I think that time has passed. I want something different. I want something new. And they didn't deliver in the last 3 movies. So I don't think going back to them characters is going to be the answer. Right? What do you think, Amy? Like, do you think a movie with Rey is good? Because I mean, I think you're on the idea that maybe we do need something different. Have a plan, create some new characters, and like Mandalorian, like you pointed out, that has roots in classic cinema and inspiration and influence.
I guess if we go back with Rey, if that, like, say that like that's the only character that they use from the sequel trilogy, maybe something could still work. Just Again,
I
just
think
keep
the
it
problem
simple.
is
Don't
that,
overcomplicate it.
All right,
yeah,
Rex,
I
what do you
think the
think?
problem is they've acted, and unfortunately, I don't know if there's a way back. They've acted like they have ADD, okay, with the way they've told the story. And why you didn't do something else with the Mandalorian and immediately decide to skip to Acolyte, I have no idea. It's almost as if they're trying to throw it on the wall and see if it sticks. And they had that with the Mandalorian, and why they abandoned it, I don't know. It's
Well,
whether
now they're
it's
gearing up
Ray
for
or
the
not.
movie.
It's
They're gearing up for
fine.
the movie now, Rex, right? You know
Okay.
that, right? So they're doing the Mandalorian and
Right,
Grogu movie,
which
and Dave
we all know
Filoni
has
is doing.
nothing to do with the Acolyte.
Yeah, nothing to do with it. There is no core
Right.
thread
So what's the
anymore
point?
in Star Wars to follow.
That's it. So how's it going to go? Who knows? Are they going to make it? Probably. Okay. And will it make money? Who knows? But you've kind of lost it, because you've jumped from one storyline to another storyline to another storyline. I'm going to tell the in between time. I'm going to tell what happens after Return to Jedi. I'm going to tell what happened before all of this happened, and that's all well and good, but you're doing it all at relatively the same time. Why? And I got to push the bean counters under the bus again. Somebody said, well, we could merchandise this, we can market this, we could do this with that and this storyline. It kind of feels that way. Okay. So I think that the key problem has always been the key problem. It's not what is going to make a great story and a great film, but what can we merchandise out of this that's driving the storyline? Okay. The final trilogy, the worst thing they could have done. Okay, and I know there was some rumor about it, changing storylines. All right, you had what was it, Snoke, or what was his name?
Yes,
As the bad guy. Why in the hell did you bring the Emperor back? Yes, no, right? Why in the hell did you get rid of him in movie 2, which you kind of felt like, yeah, he's kind of a poor man's Emperor, and then you totally abandoned him and brought the Emperor back. So what was the purpose in that? It didn't make really any sense to why you would do that. Okay. A decrepit old emperor. It's like, what is he doing here? Isn't he dead? It just feels kind of like that. Okay. As if, all right, well, Billy Power Max, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. Okay, you want to hear more Luke and Han stories, and to me, that's not going to solve a thing. All right, Cobra Kai is unique in the way that it happened. Series of movies, very popular. They made a kind of a YouTube series, which kind of hooked on, and then it developed a life of its own. Now, could that have worked for Star Wars? Maybe, but they didn't go that path. So the one thing that I feel that Karate Kid had was a sort of continuity. Now they're going to make a movie. Let's see where that goes. Okay. They tried to do a remake with Jackie Chan. So then Cobra Kai, the series, took off. So now they're going to try to mesh those together. I feel like that may be a mistake. That may be going the path of Star Wars. And maybe after a certain point, the story is just dead. Maybe it's time to move on. Maybe there's nothing more to tell and you're trying to tell it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
If
it
you
seems
saw
like every time they do something new, it gets worse.
If you saw an episode 10, what would you want to see from that?
I don't know. And that's really the sad part about this. Is you've now pushed the audience to a point is, I don't know what the hell I want from Star Wars. Okay. At one point it was more Jedi, more lightsabers. Well, you've done that. And still sucks. I don't know what we want. So,
all right, good answer.
you make it. Will I watch it? Probably. How's it going to do? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. We still haven't fixed Star Wars. We're going to keep trying, y'all. We're going to keep trying to try to figure out Star Wars here on this channel. However, I want to get into another thing. We briefly talked about this last week, Rex, with Alex. And Alex brought it up that Sony Pictures has bought the Alamo Drafthouse. So the Alamo Drafthouse is a small chain of theaters that have a different experience than a lot of typical theaters do. You go there and people will bring you, like you have a server. People will bring you food. People will bring you drinks. And they'll play old school movies and they play new movies. And it's a different experience. It's more of a night out. And we talked about this before. A lot of us don't have a problem. I don't have a lot of people I know don't have a problem going out with me and spending like $50 to $100 for a night just doing karaoke, just tipping bartenders, buying drinks, tipping the karaoke person, just even buying a new outfit or something. Like, people are into that, right? There's a fun communal element of that. Theaters have lost that with a lot of people, but things like Alamo Drafthouse actually kind of brings that back a little bit, right? We don't have one of those here, but we do got a place called Monaco. That is a Cinemark theater that does the same thing. And it's nice. I've been there. It's cool. Me personally, I'd rather just go buy the Sour Patch Kids and the Cherry Coke and just go see the movie because it's way of a cheaper experience for me. However, it is fun when you get a crew together. Like during COVID, we went to one of those theaters and we rented out the theater, the whole PCP crew, right? We rented out the theater and we watched the Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park, drinking and eating food. And it was a great experience, right? So Sony has bought Alamo Drafthouse, but the rumors swirling around right now are that Sony is doing this to test the waters of actually maybe buying a major chain like an AMC or a Regal or a Cinemark or something like that, right? Here's what I want to talk about the pros and cons of this. For me, the big pro would be this: a production company that has an investment in the theatrical experience. And knowing that they've gone with Alamo Drafthouse first shows that they don't want just your typical thing. Like, if they bought AMC, I think they would change some things around to make it a different experience than it has been for the last 20, 30, 40 years or whatever, right? So I think that it would also be beneficial to have a production company that is ready and willing to have a unique, fun, communal experience watching movies together with people in a cinema experience. The cons, and another pro would be this: any movie Sony owns could be shown. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things we need more of, like, we got things like Fathom events, we got anniversary editions and stuff, but we need more old school film being shown in theaters. When I hadn't seen Jurassic Park in the theaters since 1993. I'm 12 years old. It was a big deal to me to watch that movie, right? We went to the mall. We all went to the food court. We got to have whatever we wanted. We went and saw Jurassic Park. I had Twizzlers and Cherry Coke. I remember that. That was a really great experience. And re-seeing that on the big screen, I had almost forgotten how awe-inspiring seeing that film on the big screen is, right? So I think we need more opportunities to show older films in theaters for a younger audience, right? I remember the first time that I saw Casablanca in a theater. It changed the way I looked at that movie. It was a different experience than it is at home where you can pause it. There's something unique about the theater experience with certain movies. So I love the idea that anything Sony owns, they could just play. They could have a Spider-Man day and play Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 by Sam Raimi. And that could be like a thing that people go and do, right? But then at the same time, the cons, if it's Sony, will they care as much about other productions from other companies? Or will they put more of it on them, right? And I also think a big con, I think that's the biggest con is, okay, so if Sony owns a theater chain, are they not going to really push that experience on films from other companies? I think that would be an issue as well. But it is an interesting thing to talk about. Amy, you're a big theater goer. Mm-hmm. Pros and cons, a movie production company owning a theater chain. What do you think?
Well, I like the idea of making the theater going experience more exciting if they put actual investment in it, whether it's adjusting prices, redo the seating, make it more comfortable for the consumer. I guess again, it's another thing that studios should be careful about if they buy a whole theater chain. Like, do they just focus on their movies? Do they allow other movies to get shown, or is it just, like that's the tricky part.
Yeah, for sure. Would you like to see a commitment to showing more old school movies in theaters?
I do like that. I look up Fathom events to see what movies we can see in theaters, because I like you, I got to see Casablanca for like the 80th anniversary in the theaters. It was really cool. So, and again, that's a smart way of bringing people back to theaters, because especially if it's a movie, like if you never got to see this movie when it first came out, now here's your chance.
Yeah, like there's a lot of us. I love the Indiana Jones movies, right? I never saw any of those first 3 Indiana Jones films in theaters.
I would love to see them on the big
Yeah,
screen. I'd love to.
That'd be great, especially
1,000%
remastered in IMAX, possibly even. That'd be so cool.
Last year, Disney re-released a select amount of movies for their 100th anniversary, which I thought was really cool. Like, they put Beauty and the Beast back in theaters for like a week and a half. Like, I couldn't get to see it, but I was like, I would have loved to if I had the time. Because like I never saw that on the big screen. That I'm like, that would have been great. So yeah, especially if it's an anniversary event, like, yeah, do that, because yeah, people will come. People will come to see them.
Yeah, and make it a big deal. Don't make it just like the way it works with Fathom events. It's like Wednesday night and Sunday afternoon, we're gonna play. There's 2 showings. No, it needs to be more than that. Like recently, they had re-released Phantom Menace, right? And I got to go see Phantom Menace in theaters. I remember I was there the day it came out. I was in the midst of graduating high school. It was a big deal. But I have people that work at my shop. They're huge Star Wars heads that never got to see Phantom Menace in theaters. They went and saw it. That got them out to the theater. This person hadn't gone to see a movie in a theater since probably the last Star Wars movie. But it was something that brought them back. And he was like, man, seeing that in the theater was something. I agree with you now. The pod race and the Duel of the Fates rock, because they do rock in the theater, right? And I know a lot of people got some nice theaters, right? Like home theaters, but like it ain't the same as going to a really nice theater to see something like that. And it just makes it like so much more epic. We just recently on the channel a couple months ago talked about Gladiator. And I was talking about like, man, watching this on my 50-inch was not like it was watching it in the theater. And I worked at the theater when that movie came out. I watched that multiple times. And like, I vividly remember how big and epic it was. Still works in the home theater, right? And some people got a 72-inch or 128-inch or whatever, right? But it is something different. Rex, you're not an avid theater goer anymore. What do you think about this stuff?
Yeah, I think you're kind of getting the wrong message by what they're doing here. What I think they're doing is they see that the movie theater experience is starting to die, and part of it is their own fault, is because they are allowing things to go to streaming so much faster, right? And they have no loyalty to theater per se. So what I think we're seeing is if one is considering it, another is going to consider it, and another is going to consider it. So your content creators, okay, whether it be Sony or Disney or whomever, is going to own their own chain of movie theaters. And you're only going to be able to see their movies in their theaters. And that is their long-term goal, to absolutely control how you consume what they produce. Okay? So I don't think it's a question of will there be bias. I believe if Sony does this, the only thing you're going to see is Sony movies in those movie theaters. Okay? It is another way for them to market their movies. Yeah, what they're going to do is, we'll serve you dinner. I don't know. Then Disney is going to see that, and they're going to be forced to buy a chain of movie theaters as well. And that is what is eventually going to change the business model. Because the current, and we've talked about it before, the current business model for movie theaters is dying. And the reason it's dying is they don't control the content. And because they don't control the content, they do not control the parameters of the content. I hate to do it, all right, because it inevitably is going to result in the jokes in the chat. But Taylor Swift kind of led the way and showed them,
Swiftie.
okay, that although not the lesson that people hope, I know, right? It just keeps going in and out. I have no idea why. So basically, she showed the way, all right. They don't have to, Marcus. They have an entire library of movies that they have, just as Robbie was saying. I'll show Casablanca. I'll show this. I'll show that. Okay, to keep moving, right? And now I know that I have to use. We've done so often, right, with baseball. Savannah Bananas, okay, bunch of nobodies, right? But they are sold out across the country. I tried to get tickets, couldn't. Why? Because they have turned that whole thing upside down on its head. Okay. So what they've done is they've made you come out. There are no stars. There's no Major League Baseball. So what we've done is we've turned the baseball game into something else. And I think that's what they're looking to do. Marcus, you're only talking about new releases. Okay. So I'm telling you, I disagree with you, but they do have to change the fundamentals of it. Just as Savannah Bananas have changed the fundamentals of watching a professional sports league.
Well, let me
whether
interject
it's
real
through
quick,
dinner
Rex.
or whether it's what's that?
Yeah, so like let's say Disney buys a theater chain, right? There's a Disney theater in most hometowns or near most hometowns, right? First of all,
Right.
children's movies still do bonkers. Children would still love to see Snow White or Cinderella or Alice in Wonderland in the theater, right? And there are adults that would like to see that. And here's another thing. You talk about
Right.
the experience provided by Disney parks. What if you have a mini Disney park experience in that theater? There's a play area. There's people dressed up as characters. They're always showing Mickey Mouse cartoons before the stuff. Like it gives you the old sense. I actually think it makes more sense for Disney to own a movie chain right now than Sony. And here's the other thing too. Do you think that Sony would not show the biggest movie of the year, like at their theater? You know what I'm saying? Like if say Sony owned a theater chain the year Top Gun Maverick came out, they're showing that movie because they're trying to make money. And then they would have these deals like you have with the streaming services where they would be licensing, like, oh, Sony's got the rights to have Disney movies or something. But what if like there was like something like that where there was more of an experience you go there, like you go to a certain theater owned by a certain chain. There's a DeLorean there. They're having a Back to the Future event. Everything's crazy. There's interesting food. There's interesting drinks. There's more for the kids. There's like, because back in the day, arcades were a big deal, right? You go to the theater, drop me off an hour before the movie. We'll just hang out at the arcade, right? That's all gone too, right? Like nobody hangs out at the arcade at my theater anymore. Nobody. Like I go there every once in a while to play air hockey, but that's like it, right? So I like, what if there was like a Disney theater chain where it gave you a little bit of a mini park experience?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. I mean, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Now, you got to flesh it out, okay? Because you got to reach a much wider general audience. But that's where I think they're moving with this. Because look, the original movie theater business model is dead. They have no control over anything, not the content, not what they have to pay. So they're trying to jack you for like a $15 popcorn, an $8 soda, a $5 box of candy. How long is that sustainable? Now with streaming, it's not. So what you're seeing is, exactly, Sweet Mimosa. It might not. It depends how popular it is. Okay. Okay, yeah, Marcus, it will. But I'd say things are getting pretty old pretty fast right now. Okay, from a movie theater standpoint, you're losing a big chunk of the audience. Whether you feel it's right or it's not, the numbers bear out. Less people are going to movie theaters because they can watch it streaming. Now, people are saying, well, they should not release it that quick. Why would they do that? There's money there. Why would
Well, if
they
they
do
own
it?
their own, if they own their
Some
own
bean
theater
counter in a
chain,
room in a suit says, if we do it by this date, you're going to make this much more money than
yeah, but
if
like for
you
instance,
hold
if
off.
Sony owned movie theaters and
Because they
Sony doesn't
will
have a
not go to
streaming
the theater
service,
seat. They will just wait it out.
right? And Sony doesn't have a streaming service, right? So if Sony owned a movie theater, they would have more like reason to try to keep a movie in the theater longer, maybe. And it would add a different element when it comes on streaming because there would be more leeway of word of mouth, people
But
that had seen it.
Eventually, they're going to do it. Okay. There's a reason that the industry has moved this way. Okay. It just is. And so, we've talked about it before. You have to change the movie theater experience. For the same reason, you'll go to a ball game. You'll watch on TV, but you want to go to a ball game once or twice a season. Okay. But they have to accept that the model has changed. So now we go to what, 1 or 2 ball games a year. Okay. Watch the rest on TV. So maybe that's where movie theaters are going. You're really going to go less times in a given year than you did before because you don't have to go all the time. I don't know. I don't pretend to know exactly what the solution is. But what I see is that if they start buying up movie chains, this is the direction they're moving in. Okay. Because think of it this way. Okay. So Marcus says, well, you can't do it because there's an interest. But think about it this way. Say Sony does want to show, a movie that's not theirs. Now, if Paramount or somebody else also owns a movie chain, why would I let you show the movie? I'm reserving that for my own chain of theaters, right? So there's no logic in letting you do it and make money off my back.
Yeah, because
So
then you're
I just see
having
this as the
exclusives
beginning of a
to,
major shift.
yeah, then you'd have like exclusives to Sony AMC theaters, right? Or something like that, right? People would like be trying to hoard in on their content, or would they license it out?
Keep in mind, during the 70s and 80s, the movie theaters took a shift too. There wasn't enough new productions coming out. So what do you do to stay alive? The concept of the summer matinees, things like that, kept things alive. Let's see. Sweet Mimosa, I do believe you need to make more of an event. It would be nice if they would make
More
it
an event
cheaper,
and make things
but
cheaper.
I don't know that that's enough to motivate. What's that? Say it again. I didn't catch.
Having both is what Amy was saying. Make it cheaper and an event.
Won't happen because once you start trying to turn it into an event, you're going to spend some serious money. So you got to recoup that money, right? You redesign the theaters, whatever you're going to do. So I don't see that as being a viable option. They're not going to make it cheaper. That much I'm pretty certain of. It may be by relationship be cheaper because now the studio can sort of write it off, if you know what I mean. Okay, it's like a major store putting something on discount. So they may be able to absorb it that way, but because right now the movie theaters are dying. They pay so much to show the movie that they're just choking on it. It's so hard for them to make money. So fortunately, they have to go. They are probably going to go by the wayside. And I think that the studios recognize, unless we're willing to completely walk away from the theater experience, we're going to have to do something because we're not charging them less. So we got to figure out a way to fix this. And this I feel like is what's happening. That's why they're contemplating buying chains of movie theaters, whatever. Maybe they can make it cheaper. Maybe they make it an experience, whatever the case may be. But right now, it has to be profitable, or they wouldn't do it. Or they have to believe it's going to be profitable.
Yeah. Amy, what do you think about the idea of Disney theaters?
Disney themed theaters. guess I'm not quite sure how I feel about a Disney themed theater. I mean, because I still like the idea of like you can see anything at a theater because like everyone can exist there, like big movies, small movies, everyone can coexist. You know?
Yeah, 100%. Rex, did you have some thoughts?
So what Marcus said, I think makes a lot of sense. Owning a theater means more overhead costs, and they end up turning it into a popcorn business because they have no other way to leverage it. Okay, but a Disney could leverage it. Who knows? I'm just throwing ideas out there. Okay, let's say we do a Disney animation marathon. Along with that marathon, we've got a regular Disney store in the theater. Buy stuffed animals, buy this, buy that, all under one umbrella. Okay, so now all of a sudden you're selling. You can charge cheaper tickets. Okay, because you're selling stuffed animals, you're selling toys, you're selling games, you're selling whatever while you're there. Okay, so that could be doable. How would it look? I don't know. Okay, but movie theaters as a whole, it's just I don't see how they can stay afloat.
Well, I just know that another week,
see what happens.
Another week done, and we haven't solved Star Wars or the movie theaters problems yet. But I guess we're gonna keep plucking away at this. Rex, Amy, thank you so much for being here. What y'all got coming up?
Just remind everyone
tonight on the Experience.
Go ahead. You go, Amy.
Sorry, who's going first?
I love how Rex is still having internet problems, even though he's at home not using Comcast. Everybody, I just want you to know this.
I know. It's unbelievable. I
think you're the problem, Rex. I think we need a new
Go ahead, Amy.
We need to update Rex. Has anybody tried turning you off and turning you back on again, Rex?
There we go, right?
We have special guests on the Experience tonight. We have Amanda Deaver and Trish Forstner talking about our newest Darkwing Kickstarter, so go check that out. Rex, did you have anything else?
Yeah, Darkwing Kickstarter. Check that out. Puppet Master backer kit crowdfunder. Check that out. And the Boys Humble Bundle is still available. So check all those three out. Great projects we got going on, and we can definitely use your support.
Heck yeah. All right. For me, I want everybody to join us for the finale, finally, of Crew's Choice. We're going to be talking Monday night about the Collateral from Michael Mann, Jamie Foxx, Tom Cruise. Very excited to talk about that movie for our finale of Crew's Choice. It's finally over. 8 freaking weeks of Tom Cruise movies, y'all. That was a little bit more crazy than I thought, but it actually led me to reevaluate what I thought about Tom Cruise, which was interesting. So we're going to end it Monday night with Collateral after the show we do over at the EXP Comic Collectables. And then we're jumping right into Action Fest on July 1st with the Die Hard franchise. So that's going to be super fun. So anyway, Rex, Amy, thank you so much for being here. You in the chat, thank you so much for being here. If you're watching on the replay, let us know anything you think about what we were saying. Y'all have a good one.